I know that feeling all too well. You scroll through a sea of glossy images, read the polished specs, and think you've found the perfect camera, only to discover that when you actually try to capture a birthday party or a nighttime cityscape, the results feel flat. The focus hunting, the battery dying before you're done. That disappointment is why I'm diving into the Panasonic LUMIX GH7 today, to help you dodge the looks good online, sucks in real life trap. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the GH7 is marketed as the iconic pro camera with up to 10-minute improvements, and it's clearly aimed at creators who want a blend of video and stills capability without stepping up to a full-frame rig. The biggest question for most of us is whether it actually delivers on that promise when we're shooting in the wild, not just in a controlled studio. I've spent a good chunk of the last week taking it out for real-world tests, from a rainy street market in the afternoon, to a dimly lit indoor gig, to a weekend hiking trip where I was juggling stills and 4K footage. Here's what I found. Ease of use is the first hurdle for anyone moving from a smartphone or a point-and-shoot. The GH7's body feels familiar if you've used any Panasonic Micro Four Thirds camera before, with a solid grip and a layout that puts the most common controls within easy reach. The menu system, however, is where many users get stuck. Panasonic still leans heavily on layered submenus and jargon that can feel like a maze if you're not already fluent in the brand's terminology. That said, once you spend a few minutes customizing the quick access icons, the most essential settings, ISO, focus mode, and frame rate, become reachable in under 2 button presses. So for beginners who are willing to invest a short learning curve, the GH7 can be manageable, but if you expect a plug-and-play experience, you'll probably find the menu friction a bit of a nuisance. Autofocus confidence is a make-or-break factor, especially for video creators who can't afford hunting focus pulls in the middle of a take. The GH7 uses Panasonic's depth from defocus (DFD) system, which, on paper, promises fast subject tracking. In my tests, the DFD performed admirably with moving subjects in decent light. A runner in the park stayed locked on, and a child playing with a kite didn't drift out of focus. In low-light situations, though, the autofocus became less reliable. When I shot a concert at around 100 lux, the camera occasionally slipped into a hunting loop, especially when I tried to maintain continuous focus while zooming. If you're planning a lot of low-light work, pairing the GH7 with a fast prime lens and switching to manual focus for critical moments can mitigate this weakness. Low-light behavior is another frequent buyer concern. The Micro Four Thirds sensor is smaller than APS-C or full-frame options, which generally means more noise at higher ISOs. The GH7 does a respectable job up to ISO 1600, delivering images that retain detail without looking overly grainy. Beyond that, you start seeing the typical Micro Four Thirds noise pattern, which can be softened in post but isn't ideal for clean, professional-grade footage straight out of the camera. If you're shooting indoor events where you can keep the ISO under 1600, the GH7 will hold its own. For darker venues where you need to push to ISO 3200 or higher, you might be better served by a larger sensor body. Stabilization is where the GH7 shines for many creators. It features a 5-axis in-body image stabilization (IBIS) that works in conjunction with compatible Panasonic lenses. In handheld shooting, I was able to get smooth 4K video at walk-and-talk speed without a gimbal, and my stills were noticeably sharper than those taken on a rival mirrorless model lacking IBIS. The system also compensates for small movements while you're tracking a subject, which helps keep focus smooth. That said, the stabilization algorithm leans heavily on sensor shift, so if you attach a very heavy lens, you'll notice a slight reduction in effectiveness. For most hobbyist lenses, the IBIS is more than enough to keep you steady on the go. Now let's talk about the lens ecosystem. The Micro Four Thirds mount has been around for a while, so you have a decent selection of native lenses from Panasonic, Olympus, and third-party manufacturers. The real advantage of the GH7 is its compatibility with Panasonic's video-oriented lenses, like the 1235mm f/2.8, which provide a useful focal range and a constant aperture for consistent exposure. However, the smaller sensor means you'll need to consider the crop factor when thinking about depth of field. You'll get more background blur than a full frame at the same aperture, but you also lose some reach, which can be a limitation for wildlife or sports shooters who rely on telephoto lengths. If you already own micro Four Thirds lenses, the GH7 will slot right in. If you're starting from scratch, you'll need to budget for a couple of quality glass pieces, which adds to the overall cost. Battery confidence is often